What was the shocking incident that happened at your high school?
In my Catholic private high school, a girl got pregnant and it was a really big deal. Lots of parents, teachers, et al. Wanted her expelled. People were withdrawing their kids, etc. Our principal, Father B, called everyone, all students and faculty and parents into the chapel on a weekday evening to remind us about love, acceptance, caring for one another, and all the teachings that Jesus wanted us to practice. I'm still an atheist, but it was so incredibly lovely and beautiful, and it was the most Christian thing I'd ever had the privilege of witnessing. Father B really socked it to them that night.
1978. A guy in my health science class got into a very loud, heated, in-your-face, finger-poking chest argument with the teacher. He was a couple minutes late for class and reeked of weed. Didn't we all in the 70s? And the teacher swung and hit him. They exchanged punches. The teacher ended up dragging him out of the classroom down to the office. Student was suspended for a week. Teacher went back to teaching. I remember we all just sat there watching it go down. We didn't move. I don't know why none of the other guys in class tried to break it up. Ada, the valedictorian of our class, married the marching band teacher a week after graduation. We all knew they were hooking up. Nobody cared.
I'm a man and taught H's. I'd be lying if I said there weren't female students who were physically attractive, but there wasn't one of them that also wasn't still a child emotionally. If you knew them at all as an individual versus an object, they were just kids. Nothing sexually attractive about them to an adult. It really drove home how predatory, selfish, and evil adult educators, coaches, clergy, etc. are that have sexual relations with minors. Truly damaged and stinted individuals damaging others for their gratification.
There has been a series of suicides at our high school. One, then another, and another, and another. I think there were 7 total in a few weeks. They shut down all of our classes, and we had counseling in every class, every day, for several weeks. There were outside counselors, law enforcement, administration everywhere. It stopped the trend, though.
Rural Midwest School District just beginning to transition to a suburban district in the early 80s. Graduating classes were around 200 kids. A very large district geographically made up of half-dozen small villages and with a mix of fairly prosperous farm kids, old-line blue-collar townie kids, a few subdivision kids, some very wealthy kids, and some dirt poor kids, almost entirely white. A year after graduation, one of the townie girls was found with her throat slashed in a ditch. She was a nice kid, but liked to party, was raised by her grandmother. She worked second shift at a small-town nursing home, was living with her high school friend, who was a stripper. Small-town cops did arrest a guy a few years older than us and impounded the van the rape/murder had supposedly happened in. But the guy was a son of a very wealthy man. His father was VP of a major automotive components corporation, Dana Corp. The small-town cops who arrested didn't have all their legal particulars in order, and Dana corporate attorneys swooped in, got the kid out, and took back possession of the van. By the time the cops got their shit and warrants together, when they re-seized the van, it had been absolutely scrubbed clean. The dad took the son away to their family lake house and died a week later of a heart attack. The murderer went free, stayed in the town, got a line job at a GM plant, and nothing happened for 30 YRS. The whole town knew and did nothing. About 10 YRS ago, the kid was still working UAW and also managing the local Elks Club. He raped a waitress, and during that investigation, the police were finally able to get DNA evidence that tied into the murder in 1982. He was convicted and is in jail. There's a lot more sordid shit to the story, but I'll stop for the sake of brevity. This story always made those movies like River's Edge and Blue Velvet seem like documentaries of where I grew up. A veneer of white propriety and self-righteous virtue, but underneath, drugged out, immoral, and violent.
Our senior year, one of the most beautiful and popular girls, and one of my closest pals, who was being raised by her modest, sweet, quiet, and rather conservative single mom, came to school one morning absolutely distraught. This was early 80s, pre-internet. The only way you got the news was to buy a newspaper or watch the local news station. We lived in a very small rural community. attended a small high school. Literally, everybody knew everybody. She gets off the bus, and I could tell right away, she was upset, couldn't even bear to speak. Looking back, I honestly don't know why she came to school that day at all. No one would have blamed her. I suppose she was needing a routine, friends, and normalcy. I finally grabbed her and dragged her into the bathroom and made her tell me what was wrong. She said, "Oh God, I'll never get past this. My life is ruined, but I'm gonna have to face it. BC, everyone is going to find out when they see the newspaper anyway. PPL in the office and library probably already know." She finally managed to get it out. Apparently the evening before, her mother had robbed a bank. Sheesh. Hot. Turns out she'd been kidnapped at gunpoint from her job and made by these two dudes to take a demand note into the bank teller saying this is a robbery. Cooperate and no one will die. After it was all sorted out within the next few days and the dust settled, her mother was later examined and found to have been beaten by these guys. Had 3 broken ribs and a broken wrist. She of course got no time. But the dudes that kidnapped her, nobody robs banks in our tiny little town, LOL.
My friend's boyfriend went out partying with a group of friends. He was drunk and throwing up out the back window of the car. The driver turned around to look at him and turned the wheel. She swerved into a sign and decapitated him. Seeing this made her swerve into oncoming traffic. Her boyfriend, who was the passenger, was left paralyzed from the waist down. The other 2 people and Jimmy died. She walked away with bruises. His family buried him a state over where the rest of their family was buried. The night before the funeral, when we were supposed to drive out to the funeral, it was a huge snowstorm. None of his friends were able to make it, and neither was his girlfriend.
After I graduated, I think 2 years after, a group of honors students got together and decided to intentionally throw the fill-in-the-bubble state school achievement tests. It started in the college-level AP history class. The kids wanted to pass that test to get college credit. Their class was interrupted in the 3 weeks before the test in order to study some sophomore-level geometry. They were pissed and having their study time messed with. Meetings were had, commitments made. We had about 400 seniors taking the test, give or take. Turns out that up to 30 kids, who are really smart and know how to fill in all the wrong answers, was enough to drop the school from a usual 92 down to about an 85 in 1 year. Rumors were spread, administrators fumed, no student confessed to the tale, because the testing was all anonymous. So everyone got away with that non-crime. If that happened today, it might be enough to impact housing prices. People use those exams results to choose where to buy a house to send their kids to that one school.
My best friend's brother knew this boy. This boy aggressively pursued me, which was weird, because while I wasn't gross or anything, I was not a standout and quite a tomboy. I was in 9th grade. He in 10th. He always wanted to make out with me in front of everyone. He was very cute and sweet, but there was a disconnect somewhere. Nothing felt real, and after a few weeks he seemed more of a stranger to me than when he first asked me out. We broke up and kind of just became acquaintances after that. He disappeared a little later in the year. I thought he moved and didn't give it much thought. Turns out that he was gay and he ended up leaving because some jocks found out and raped him at a party. This was in the early 80s and in what was once a smallish town, in which jocks were king and money spoke loudly. Nothing was ever done about it. I was so sad and angry when I found out what had been done to him. I'm still angry and sad. I hope he is living his best life with the love of his life. I like to imagine him with a husband who is gentle and supports and protects him, and maybe they even have children they support and protect.